Good morning, Thrivent. You know, I don't know about the rest of you looking around, we're all of a similar age. Going back 20, 30 years, I remember watching The Muppet Show on television. Do you all remember that? Well, weren't Caleb McEwen and John Sweeney great this morning? Really funny? I always wanted to be introduced by Statler and Waldorf. And this morning I got my wish. It's great to be with you, a real honor, and I will just say before I start one very important thing. I'm not a sycophant at all. I have to say, however, that in all the months that I've been dealing with Thrivent in respect of speaking at this conference today, they have been the best, the most professional, timely organization I've had the pleasure of working with. So to Jeremy Schmidt and all of your team, I do thank you all very much. So you're in good hands. Now, before I begin, I'm going to start rather unusually. You've probably never heard a speaker say this to you before, but I would just like to admit to you all that I am feeling just a little bit nervous right now. I have been given a brief to motivate and inspire each and every one of you this morning, and so I am feeling just a little bit nervous. Never great to be an opening speaker. So I was thinking on my way here, what can I do and have you do that will motivate and inspire me so that I in turn can motivate and inspire you? And I've come up with an idea. So I'm wondering if before we begin today, we can do something for each other. Would that be okay? Yes or no? It's fine. Great. Wall-to-wall apathy. Fantastic. So before we begin, I'm just going to ask you to do something for me that will motivate and inspire me so I can motivate and inspire you. How about that? Okay? Great. So what I'd like you to do, please, is I'd like you to turn to the person sitting next to you and repeat the words I'm about to give you. Would that be okay? Right or left? Right or left. Either's fine. Somebody from the compliance department. Okay. So all I need to do is turn to the person sitting next to you and repeat these words. Are you ready? I think I'm going to like this guy. Fantastic. Thank you so much. You know, just a quick show of hands. How many people have heard me speak before? One friend. How many of you have not heard me speak before? And how many of you, frankly, couldn't care less whether you've heard me speak before or not? Okay, now, if you've not heard me speak before, I do have to tell you, I do like to use volunteers. Very interactive presentations I tend to give. So, just to see who's up for a bit of fun and a prize, because I always give prizes away, just one volunteer who's willing to come up on the stage and give me a hand. Great, two. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's just do something together. I realize it's early, you've had a big breakfast, you're feeling a little tired, you want to be motivated and inspired, a bit of get up and go. So what I'm going to ask you all to do, something all together, a bit of teamwork, bit of rah-rah, get you going. All I'd like you to do now is a little team exercise. Just follow my instructions, nice and simple. So without knocking the person sitting next to you, just put your left or your right arm out horizontally, just like this. Great, everyone all together? Now what I'd like to do, just by a few inches, is raise your arm like this. And a little bit more, and a little bit more, a little bit more, and now point them up to the ceiling. Fantastic. When I ask for a volunteer, that's what you do, okay? This is the disclaimer thing. We'll move on from this. Okay. Wasn't on my original presentation. So, before we go any further, I just want to help you understand, and today is not just about motivation and inspiration, though I hope I do share some of those things with you. It's also about giving you all a toolkit of sales ideas. Some of the things that I've worked with throughout my 25 years in the financial services business, and I do realize that a number of you have been around an awful lot longer than I have. But some of the things that I've developed based on a number of psychological principles and communication skills, I want to give you today. Real takeaway, tangible ideas that you can use in your practices from today if you wish. When communicating with clients, we have to appreciate that we deal with a number of different people on a daily basis. So we have to adapt and adopt different strategies in different situations with different people. I think most of us would agree with that. So just to establish what I'm talking about here, to set the scene, if you like, I want to share with you one thought, because I don't know, I guess there's 1,500 people here today. Every single one of you has different personality traits. You communicate in different ways. And I would broadly suggest that there's about 5 different character types, that you will come across in your daily lives, both professionally and personally. I'd like to share with you what those 5 different character traits are. See if you can identify which one you are, because today's presentation isn't just about appealing to one type of individual, it's about appealing to lots of different types, the 5 main character types. And you need to be prepared to adapt your presentations accordingly. So, let's just, by way of a show of hands, I'd like you to look at the screen if you've not already done so. There are 5 shapes in front of you. All I'd like you to do individually, without really thinking about it, is just choose one of those shapes that instinctively appeals to you the most. Okay? Everyone done that? Don't think about it, don't analyze it, just choose one that appeals to you the most. Okay, so by way of a show of hands, what I'd like you to do is raise your hand now if you chose the circle. Wow, okay, very interesting. How many of you chose the square? Now, in the UK, we don't like to admit to being a square, but I'll come back to that one in a moment. Interesting that we have a number of squares. Triangles. How many triangles do we have in the room today? Okay, and rectangles. Any rectangles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably not even a dozen. But I'm going to come back to you, individuals, and it's probably worth just glancing along the rows, or whoever it was that raised their hand in front or behind you, just have a quick look at these people next time they raise their hand, because they are very special people indeed. It's great to meet those 12 or so people. I'll come back to you shortly. And because I know you're now itching to raise your hand, how many squiggles do we have in the room today? Wow, okay. Hardly surprising, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, let me just tell you about the 5 different character types. If you chose a circle, raise your hand one more time. Okay, now these are the sociables. These are the natural-born salespeople, you'll be pleased to know. They find interaction, communication, naturally very straightforward. They tend to engage in conversation, in activity. They like to be surrounded by lots and lots of people. Often, life and soul of the party. Very talkative, very communicative. Great in sales, generally speaking. How many squares? Raise your hand. Now, the squares are the traditionalists. These are the ones that like things to be just so. They are very neat and tidy. They are great at keeping secrets. And they tend to live their life to a diary or to lists. They tend to list things down all of the time. Squares will identify with that. Triangles. How many triangles do we have? Okay, quite a number. Now, the triangles, and this is scientifically proven, are the aspiring leaders. Now, don't worry, the CEO, the COO, their jobs are safe. When I talk about aspiring leaders, I talk about people who set high standards, high goals. They aspire to achieve things every day. Easily motivated, easily demotivated. So there's something in today's presentation for you guys as well. So rectangles. Where are my dozen or so rectangles? This is when 12 turns into about 30 because they think they're special. Okay? 12. We have about 12. Now, I'd just like you to see these hands and remember who it is that's raised their hands, because these are very, very special people indeed. And if I were to tell you that in all the places I've ever been, all the countries I've visited, if I ever find more than about 1% of the audience who is a rectangle, very unusual. So you have a very, very high percentage of rectangles in Thrivent, which is great news, and I'll tell you why. Because rectangles, again, this is scientifically proven, are the individuals who are the most open to change. And that's why I don't meet many of them. Now today, a lot of today's presentation is going to be about change. It's about giving you tools and techniques that will help you transition from wherever you are right now to wherever you want to be. I imagine you're all here today because you want to better yourselves. I don't have all the answers to your life. You have those answers, but if I can help you along that path to greater success, then I'll have done my job. And finally, because I know you're desperate, raise your hand one more time, Squiggles. Okay, now keep your hands up, Squiggles. This is very important. I have a very, very important message for you. Scientifically proven, if you are a squiggle, you are certified mad. Sorry about that. It's true, you are absolutely crazy. He knew it. So did I. You are crazy, but let me just clarify. You are crazy in a very creative way. You are the most creative of all the 5 personality types. Isn't it true, Squiggles, that the best idea you heard was the last idea you heard? It's true, isn't it? You never sit still, always on the go, motivation levels like this. Nobody can quite keep up with you. Active, reactive, proactive, never quite in one place for any length of time. So, something in today's presentation for all of you. Before I share with you some of the ideas that have helped me in my business, my personal and professional life, I want to share with you, if I may, a little story. In 1976, my father, who you see on the screen with my mother, she was actually pregnant with me at the time in this photograph, but my father was a very, very successful restaurateur, had 3 businesses, hugely successful, was diagnosed with lung cancer. Now, in 1976, lung cancer, particularly at the advanced stage my father found his disease, there wasn't very much they could do. After a very long 2-year battle with a dreadful, dreadful disease, my father passed away. And he left my mum and 4 children. I was the eldest, aged just 9. Within just 2 years, my mother lost everything my father had ever worked for. The house, the business, he ran a restaurant business my mother had never worked. Everything that ever been accumulated and built was gone. And the simple reason for that is that the perception was my father, having enjoyed success throughout his career, didn't need life insurance, didn't need financial planning, and as a consequence, no one ever had the courage to contact him. Life was a struggle. Within 2 years of my mother's bankruptcy, we were moved into welfare accommodation, a 2-bedroom property which the 5 of us shared. Now, as they often say in life, when one door closes, another one seems to open. And shortly after that, my mum met a wonderful man. His name was Dave. And Dave was to become my confidant, my best friend, my mentor, my teacher. He was someone who inspired and motivated me. And throughout my teenage years, he encouraged me to do anything my heart desired. He set me goals. He made me ambitious. He was fantastic in every respect. So as I say, when one door closes in life, another one seemed to open. That certainly was the case with our family. A number of years later, we had a 5th child, number 3 in terms of my sisters. I have a younger brother as well. And everything was great again. But during my teenage years, and as I moved into the financial services profession, a wonderful, wonderful business, I'm sure you'd agree, at the age of just 21, I promised myself that if ever lightning struck twice, if ever something were to happen to my mum or to Dave, that I would do everything I possibly could to make sure my family didn't relive the horrors from all those years previously. And when I went into the financial services business at age 21, the first promise I made to myself was that I would sell my mother and my stepfather Dave life insurance. If lightning were to ever strike twice, I would be the one to ensure that the hardship suffered by my family was not endured again. But I stand here before you today with a confession. My confession is that for 2 years, I procrastinated. I did what many of us do on a daily basis. I put off having that question. I put off having the conversation, asking the question, because in my mind, there were lots of reasons why today wasn't the right day to ask about the importance of life insurance. I thought to myself, they didn't have very much money. My stepfather Dave had to give up his job to look after the children. The weather was bad. The economy wasn't doing very well at that particular time. I was the one making excuses as to why I didn't have that conversation with my mother and my stepfather Dave. And it's no coincidence that for 2 years, I was an abject failure in this business. I saw very few people, made lots of excuses. In fact, after about 6 months of joining the industry, I left, disillusioned, and went into real estate. The great news is I was worse at selling houses than I was at selling financial services. So I went back into financial services to have another go, a second chance. But for 18 more months, I put off having that important question, asking that important question. One of the things that I've learned throughout my career, apart from the ideas that I'm going to share with you during the next 35 minutes or so, is to have a real inner belief, something that inspires and motivates us on a daily basis. Now, it's interesting that the word belief has another small three-letter word sitting right in the middle of it. And I'm a great believer that paradigms, and paradigms for those of us who are not familiar with the word, are belief systems that have no basis for reality. I'm a believer that the belief systems that we all have right now are predicated on a fundamental lie. The economy's bad. Today isn't the right day. For whatever reason, we make excuses all of the time to justify our inactivity, our procrastination. And I want to try and bust some of those myths today by giving you some ideas, some techniques that will help you move to where you want to get to. By way of a show of hands, how many members of the Discouragement Club do we have here today? By the puzzled look on your faces, I'm wondering if not all of you are familiar with the Discouragement Club. Would that be true? Okay, now I have to tell you this, even in Thrivent, you do have a Discouragement Club. And the Discouragement Club, just to make you familiar with what it is I'm talking about, the Discouragement Club is normally identified first thing in the morning when you get to your office, and there's normally a group of people, 5 or 6 people, smoking cigarettes, reading the newspaper, drinking coffee, but they are always complaining about everything that's going wrong in their lives and businesses right now. Those are the members of the Discouragement Club. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you right now, being honest with yourself, are you a member of the Discouragement Club? Are things tough, challenging in your lives right now? If they are, in order to get maximum benefit from this presentation, and I guess this conference, you need to decide to resign from that club today. And if you're not currently a member, make sure you never rejoin. So I'm going to suggest to you that if you change your belief system, and this is not about positive mental attitude, we can all get up in the morning and decide that today is going to be a great day. But motivation is about sustainable activity which leads to inspiration. If I can inspire you today, motivation is easy. The motivation is the steps you need to take towards an end game, an end goal. And that's what I want to try and share with you today. Okay, into the meat of the presentation. I just want to give you a number of different ideas that will help each and every one of you. I realize that some of you are more established, some of you are slightly more mature, some of you have greater technical knowledge. That doesn't really matter. What I'm looking to do today is to give each and every one of you something to take away and use in your businesses. So I have a question for all of you. How many, I've just brought a copy of my diary from last week, how many meetings, I prefer to call them meetings rather than appointments. The simple reason that I don't use the word appointments is, what do most people like to do with appointments? Cancel them, exactly. Doctors and dentists have appointments, and I often cancel appointments. I tend not to cancel meetings. So just a little pointer, use the word meeting rather than appointment. How many meetings did I have in my diary last week? Just shout out the answer. If you get the answer right, you can win a prize. 15 is a great answer. How many people would agree with 15? That's good, because it's wrong. How many others? Any suggestions? 10, 11, 1, 6. 14. Very good answers, none of them correct. The answer, very simply, is 0. I had 0 meetings in my diary last week. Let me tell you what I did have in my diary last week. I had 10 yellow boxes and a red box. That's what I had in my diary last week. Well, wasn't a trick question, but I'd like to take you back to the last time you sat in front of a prospect and you had a very successful fact-find first meeting, assuming you do it on a 2-sale interview process. You get to the end of the first meeting, you say, now we've come to the point where we set the time aside to meet so that I can come back and present my solutions to you. Is that what normally happens? And you open your diary, and guess what? It's blank, because you're not having a great month at the moment. And the prospect is looking across the table at you, thinking, not really sure I want to deal with this financial professional because doesn't look very busy to me at the moment. Imagining phoning your general practitioner, your doctor, and saying, you know, doctor, I have chest pain. I really need to come and see you. Doctor says, sure, come on down, anytime. From 5 minutes onwards through the next 2 weeks, I'm completely empty in my schedule. Just come on down whenever it suits you. What are you thinking? I think I'll try another doctor, right? And that's the way prospects think when they see an empty diary or 2 or 3 meetings and no more. So what I'm going to suggest you do, if right now you're struggling for activity, get your diary, create a yellow box diary system. You decide when you are going to meet those clients or prospects, put 10 yellow boxes to suit you and your social activity, because that's important too. The red box I'll come back to in a moment. Now here's the trick. When you're speaking to a prospect and you open your diary, the prospect sees 10 yellow boxes. What's he or she thinking? Busy, just like you thought I was busy last week. I had 0 meetings in my diary, but what you saw was yellow boxes and your brain is saying, busy, busy. That's the way prospects think. Now, if the prospect says, I can only see you on Monday morning at 9 o'clock and you don't have a yellow box there, now is the opportunity you have to negotiate. You do not say, sure, I'll come and see you at 9 o'clock, because if you've arranged to spend time with your loved one or your children, that isn't you running your business, that's your business running you. That is not the way to a successful professional financial business. If there is no other opportunity than to meet someone at 9 o'clock, you have to make that commercial decision. But you decide when you meet these clients. Put the yellow boxes in your diary. What does your brain want to do with those yellow boxes? Fill them, just like a game of bingo or lotto, as some people refer to it. Now, when you fill the 10 yellow boxes, or 5 yellow boxes, or 8 yellow boxes, or whatever you set for yourself as a goal, you get to fill the red box, but only when you've completed the 10 yellow boxes. The red box is the reward box. Everyone loves a reward. And the reward box is very simple. If you fill the 10 yellow boxes with first or second meetings, you fill the 11th red box, and whatever money you make from the red box is yours to keep and do exactly as you wish to do with it. It's quite a good deal, isn't it? Set yourself that simple goal. Set 10, 5, however many yellow boxes you want. When you've completed that task, do whatever you want to do with the red box, the reward box. Donate it to charity, give it to your church, foundation, family. It doesn't matter what you do with it, just decide to do something for you with that red box money, that red box remuneration. It is a technique that I've been using for years and years and years, even now in my business when I'm seeing fewer clients but more high net worth. I've shared this idea with numerous people and it has completely transformed their activity levels. Your brain will help you to achieve greater success if you set up a system like this. Okay, next idea I want to share with you. How many of you in your day-to-day professional lives ever get objections from clients and prospects? Wow, only about 15 of you. That's amazing. The rest of you must be super successful. You must be signing up policies like they're going out of fashion. So I'm assuming that the 15 of you that raised your hands then are the only 15 that are still awake in this room right now. But assuming that they speak for the masses, I make the safe assumption that every one of you encounters objections day to day. Would that be fair? And typically, do you have things like, I can't afford it, I want to think about it, need to compare it with somebody else, I already have a brother or a cousin in financial services? Isn't it amazing the number of brothers and cousins that work in financial services? Extraordinary. But apart from that, how many other objections do you get? Because it sounds to me as if we're all getting the same kinds of objections day to day. Would that be fair? Okay, if I could share with you right now one idea that I guarantee would 100% of the time lead the prospect to yes, would that be of value? Yes. Okay, I have it for you. I have been playing around with this idea for a number of years based on a very, very strong psychological principle, which I'll explain in a moment. I absolutely give you my word, 100% of the time, it will lead the client to yes. And we'll role play this just so I can demonstrate how it works. Okay, so let's just take an objection. Anything you want. I have no money, right? That's a pretty common one. Now, you know they've got money. They probably know they've got money, but they just come out with that one because they just want to push it all to one side. So here's how it works. It's a 3-step process. And I should just say, by the way, that if any of you have got pens and paper and you are furiously scribbling notes, then you might want to just take the time to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. And if you then want to refer back to notes, and more importantly, the exact words I use, I have created a page specifically for Thrivent on my website, which is simply sandroforte.com. SANDROFORTE.com. This is not a plug. I'm not here selling books. I'm not here selling my website or any of my other activities. It is specifically for you guys on my website, go to Downloads, and if you click on Downloads, all of the material I'm sharing with you today is available for you to literally just print off. That's diagrams, scripts, and all of the other stuff that I'm sharing with you today. So you don't necessarily have to make all these copious notes if you feel inclined not to. So three-part process, very, very simple. The first thing that happens, generally, whenever there is conflict between two people, and objection is conflict. I despair of the number of people who say, you know, objections are buying signals. No, they're not. Objections are objections. And as a consequence, your brain is saying negative, negative, because that's the way we perceive an objection to be. The problem is, the human brain, what does it want to do when it gets some kind of objection or resistance or conflict? What's the instinctive reaction of the human brain? Wants to do what? It wants to fight, right? It wants to go toe-to-toe. You want to say to your prospect, but you do have money. You've just told me you have $300 disposable dollars every month. The problem that occurs next is that in their mind, the interference, that I call it, the barriers drop. Once you create conflict in the mind of a prospect, you are dead in the water. So the first thing you have to do is 100%, that's why I put 100 there for you, 100% welcome the objection. Note, I did not say 100% agree with the objection. 100% welcome the objection. Go into any high-end business. Apple do it, McDonald's do it, Singapore Airlines do it. You call their customer service centers, they always start by welcoming the objection. Powerful. So in this particular case, I've got no money. I am so glad you mentioned that. That's welcoming the objection. Now, what's their brain telling them when they hear me say, I'm so glad you mentioned that? They're a bit confused now. They're thinking, hang on, it doesn't normally happen like this. And instinctively, they want to know a little bit more. Would that be fair? If we were role-playing this and I was the advisor, you were the prospect, and I said, in answer to your objection, I have no money, you know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that. You're now puzzled enough to want to know a little bit more. By the way, if a prospect says something very personal like, I don't like you, or I don't like your company, do not say, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Because that would just be a bit weird. So think of another way of welcoming that objection. Thank you for being so honest. Thank you for being so honest. That's welcoming the objection. Thank you for being so honest. So I have no money. I am so glad you mentioned that. That's 100% welcome. E stands for empathy. Now you have to create a little bit of a communication system whereby the prospect thinks that you think like they do. Because human beings that think the same instinctively like one another that little bit more. Read any book on NLP. Today is not a presentation on NLP, but if you study it, you'll know this is true. So create empathy next. So, I have no money. So glad you mentioned that. If I was you, I would be thinking exactly the same thing. That's empathy. If I was you, I would be thinking exactly the same way. Prospect is thinking, okay, what's next? Now, the third part of the process is the most important. I have already used this technique on all of you, and you all said yes, which is why I know you'll always lead to yes. And you simply end what you've just started saying with a logical question. If you ask someone a logical question, you'll be familiar, left brain logic, right brain emotion. By the way, how many of you are familiar with the sales process and what goes through the human mind when someone buys a financial product? Do they buy with their left brain or their right brain? Interesting. Some say emotional, some say logical. I suggest to you it is actually both. People make the yes-no decision using their right brain. That's the emotional bit. Because if it were not so, people would, logically, they'd want to buy life insurance. It's the top of everyone's shopping list from a logical perspective, but when it comes to the emotional part of the decision-making, it's simply yes or no. And that's the bit you have no control over. You do, however, have complete control over an individual's left brain, logical brain. Ask them a logical question, the answer will always, always be yes. Try it. It works every time. If you ask an emotional question, the answer may be yes, and it may be no. Now, the way we're taught to handle objections for years and years and years is simply with an emotional question. The problem is, if the client says no, you're stuck. And that's why we've stopped handling objections. It's why we stopped asking for referrals, because we're not quite sure whether these things work or not. So ask a logical question, and here's how you would do it. I have no money. I'm so glad you mentioned that. If I was you, I'd be thinking exactly the same way. And, never but, and, if I could share with you 2 or 3 simple ideas that I've shared successfully with my other clients that's created money that they didn't have before they met me, would that be of value? Yes or no? Yes. The answer's always going to be yes, isn't it? Now, of course, I have to then share with them 2 or 3 ideas. If I then say, well, actually, I was kidding, I don't really have any ideas. Time to put my coat on and leave, obviously. But you know, every one of us, however long we've been in this industry, we know 2 or 3 ideas that will help someone save money. The fact is, people look to us for all kinds of financial solutions. Find them the money that buys them the life insurance. What a great solution that would be. So we have to work on all these different aspects of our business. Give me another objection, just so I can show you how this works. Anyone you like.
Think about it.
I want to think about it. Fantastic. Thank you for being so honest. If I was you, I'd probably want to think about it as well. And if I could share with you right now, before I leave, one simple idea that would make you instantly more wealthy, put more money in your pocket, would that be of value? Absolutely. Suddenly, 5 minutes ago, he's not interested, and now he's saying, okay, tell me more. Now, again, I need to have in my toolkit of ideas 2 or 3 different ideas that I can share with this guy or lady to help them instantaneously improve their financial position. Well, I know loads of ideas. I can get them cheaper credit cards. I can introduce them to a bank manager who offers no fees on borrowing, etc., etc. There's a whole ton of stuff that you can use. So again, without wanting to spend too much time on one idea, go to the website, download it. I've chosen 7 or 8 different objections that I come across regularly, and I guess you guys do too. And each one of them has got the suggested words you can use in every one of those situations. The important thing to communicate here is that always end with the words of value. Never end with the words of value to you. Because the moment you use the words to you, it becomes emotional. Then it becomes a self-evaluation process. Is this going to be important to me? Maybe yes, maybe no. That's when you lose control. Logical question will always lead to yes. Emotional question may lead to yes, may lead to no. Okay. In business, isn't it true that not all the ideas work all of the time? So a bit like a car or an aeroplane. I flew over from the UK yesterday, and I'm pleased to look out the window and see there's an engine on one side and there's an engine on another, and we know that if that one fails, we can still get down pretty safely. Equally, in a car, you lift up the hood, there's 6 pistons in most cars. The reason for that is one's misfiring, the car's still heading in the right direction. And so it is in financial services. In our businesses, sometimes things just don't work, so try something new, try something different. So I've got 6 very, very simple ideas that I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes sharing with you. Write them down if you wish. Use them every single day. They are tiny 2-minute ideas that if you apply them on top of your existing activity, because I'm not here today with the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I'm not here to radically overhaul your business. I'm not here today saying, take on a PA and treble your production. None of that stuff. I'm interested in the quick wins, the things that are going to put more money in your pocket, help more clients, and therefore achieve more success together. So here's 6 very simple ideas. The first idea is something I call an extraordinary letter. An extraordinary letter. Now, let me share with you, going back 11 years now, to the first extraordinary letter I ever wrote. Now, an extraordinary letter, just to set the scene, is a letter I write to an identified individual, typically high net worth, sports star, celebrity, entertainer, business owner, someone with enough wealth to make it worth my while to engage with and therefore hopefully grow my production and my business practice. Because over the years, I've tried to reduce my activity but increase the sales. It won't be new news to all of you that there are only 2 ways to grow your business. See more people, which I prefer not to do now, although in my early part of my career, that was the only solution. Now it's about increasing the value of each of the sales meetings that I have. Wherever you are in your careers right now, it's one or the other. So the extraordinary letter was just one activity every week that took 5 minutes, that's all. And I opened a magazine about 11 years ago, and I saw an article, a really interesting article, on a very, very well-known celebrity. He was a TV personality. He also happened to run a very successful business in London at the time. And sheer curiosity led me to just instinctively write this guy a letter. There are 3 component parts to a successful extraordinary letter. The first part, very simple, 1 sheet of A4, and I appreciate there's compliance things that you have to take into account here, but just bear with me for a moment. 1 simple opening paragraph. The reason for writing. I read with great interest the article on you in ABC magazine. The next part is the connection, the hook, the empathy. And the second paragraph then goes on to say, it happened that this guy was running a business called the Unique Group. So I latched onto the word unique, and I said, I'd like to think that what I do in my business is quite unique, so I'd be very interested in having a conversation with you at some point to see if we can be of mutual benefit to one another. And the third paragraph, the important one, because what's the one thing none of us like to receive in our professions? Rejection or objections, but more importantly, rejection. We hate being rejected, don't we? It's why most of us don't bother picking up the phone most of the time. And so I'm just like you, I don't like being rejected. I don't much care for prospecting, so that's why over the years I've found all these different ways of doing things differently to overcome some of those natural weaknesses that I guess I have. So the third paragraph invites them to contact me. Now that's different from what you normally read in a salesy letter, because normally the final paragraph says, I will call you in a few days, doesn't it? And you call in a few days and the person says, why are you calling me? Go away, never contact me again. Put the phone down. And you're demotivated for about 5 days. So the last paragraph invites them to contact me. Now the psychology here is that they need me more than I need them. If they never contact me, I haven't actually officially been rejected, have I? They just didn't get round to contacting me. But I don't get rejected, which is great. And you know what? The higher you set your bar, what's interesting is the bigger the individual, the wealthier the individual, the more likely they are, if they do reject you, to take the trouble to pick up the phone or write you a letter back and say, time's not right, I'm getting other advice, sorry, but, you know, appreciate you writing. They are generally at the top of their social circle or business ladder. They tend to be very, very engaging. Why? Because they've been where we've been. They've had to reach out. They've had to ask for handouts. They've had to ask for help in the past. They do appreciate where we're coming from. But let me share with you, for the last 11 years, and as I stand before you on my twin children's life, for the last 11 years, I have had at least 2 and sometimes 3 telephone calls from the prospects I wrote to once a week, just 1 letter a week, 2 to 3 responses, which led to, if you're familiar with $1 Million Round Table, top of the table production. That is a lot of production, by the way. So just because someone is a multi-millionaire, don't think that they don't need the products and services we provide. And don't think that they're surrounded by lots of advisors already, because most of them are cash rich and time poor. And they do actually need us to communicate with them. Reach out, set your bar a little bit higher, add it as a weekly activity. It takes 5 minutes to write 1 letter. Reach out to somebody. I guarantee you won't get rejected, and you might just occasionally get the odd acceptance. If you do, it will transform your business. Idea number 2 is something called client ladder. Now, I guess most of you are established enough in this business to have at least 50 clients. Would that be true? Some of you may have just started out and you're still working through your Project 100 or whatever it is you're given, but most of you have at least 50 clients. And if you do, the chances are your best clients are the ones that have been with you for the longest. And it's probably also the case that those clients that have been with you the longest probably haven't been asked for referrals for quite some time. So what I'm going to suggest you do, again, very simple activity, when you get back to your offices, find the first. If I were to ask you all right now to write down the names of your top 10 clients, instinctively, off the top of your head, most of you could do it. Would that be fair? So I'm going to suggest that you write down the names of your top 10 clients, give them a call, start with number 1. Hi, John, it's Sandra, I'm giving you a call. We haven't spoken for a while, I hope you're well, preamble and all the other stuff you do. John, I've got a great idea. Financial services around the world is evolving. And one of the things that most companies are very, very keen to ensure that their clients get these days is good service. I've always prided myself on good service, John, but I really want to take that up a level. I want to make sure that we develop a great relationship and continue that relationship in the future. John, can I meet you for 15 or 20 minutes for a coffee? I'll buy the coffee. I want to share an idea with you that will allow me to give you more of my time moving forward, and in the same way, you can help me with my business. Would that be okay? What is John going to say as one of your best clients? Yeah, sure, let's meet 15 minutes for coffee, no problem. Might be 3 months down the line, but you'll meet him for a coffee. And when you do, you simply say, if you remember, John, when we were speaking on the telephone, I said to you that I had this idea. I'm sure that, like many of my clients, you would love more of my time. And I'd really like to engage more of that time with you to make sure you get the very, very best service so we can maintain that relationship moving forward. Because your circumstances are changing, John, probably more than most of my other clients. So I want to maintain that very close connection with you. So what I'm going to do, John, is I'm going to suggest that I will give you access to me, very important word, access, not I'm going to have 4 meetings with you a year. John, I'm going to give you access to me 4 times a year. What that means is, if you want to meet with me, you'll have that without cost or obligation 4 times a year if you want to. The reality is, John won't meet you 4 times a year. You'll be lucky if John meets you once a year. But by positioning it that you are giving him access, in his mind he's thinking, wow, how many other financial advisors will provide time for up to 4 meetings a year with a prospect or a client? Not many. The reality is you don't see him 4 times a year. The thing is, John, if I'm going to give you access to me 4 times a year, the problem that gives me is I've got less time to see new people. So, John, I've been thinking, in the same way that I can help you, I'm wondering if you can help me. And the way you can help me is to go and find 2 or 3 more Johns, people just like you. And then you spell out to him what it is that makes him one of your best clients. He has $200,000 of net disposable income. He has at least $1 million of unencumbered assets. He has a great network of professional contacts. Whatever it is that sets John apart as one of your best clients, spell that criteria out. John, see if you can go and find 3 more MDs of companies, etc., etc. Now, the thing that John will do is he'll bear that in mind. He might come back to you with 1, possibly 2, good referrals, or personal introductions, as I prefer to call them, over the course of a number of months. But what do you think is the great thing about John's 1 or 2 personal introductions? Where are they going to sit on your client ladder? Right at the top where John is. Because the thing is, John knows other Johns. And if John is spending $50,000 on premiums, chances are he's going to introduce you to other people who are in a position to spend $50,000 a year on premium. So, by reaching out to your top clients and engaging in this way, working together for mutual benefit, you get high-quality referrals. That's a way to grow your business without increasing your activity levels. Okay, idea number 3. 10 cards a day. 10 cards a day is probably the simplest piece of activity you can engage in. Carry with you, in your pocket, 10 business cards. Now, I refuse to accept that there isn't a single person in this room that can't do this, because there are at least 10 opportunities every day to literally give your card to someone. Last time you went to a restaurant and enjoyed good service, did you call the maitre d' or the manager over to your table and say, you know what, I have to compliment your staff. They provided an absolutely fantastic service. By the way, here's my card. If ever I can provide a similar level of service in terms of what I do, please give me a call. And you hand the card to that individual. Taxi drivers, hotel staff, anybody you come across that provides a service to you at any point during the day, you hand them the card, say, let me compliment you on your service. Service is very important to me. If ever I can provide a great service to you, please let me know. One of 2 things will happen. Either A, they will take the card, look at it briefly, say thanks very much, put it in their pocket, and you never hear from them again. No big deal. Or they take the card and they say, what do you do? And you engage in a conversation. Sure, I might give you a call. Or they call you several months later. Now, apart from the small cost of producing more business cards, there is no risk to you whatsoever. You are engaging with lots and lots and lots more prospects. If you do that every day, 5 days a week, you're reaching out to 2,500 people a year. Now, law of averages state that there's probably at least 100 or 200 sales opportunities within that activity level. So make sure that you set yourself a daily goal, 10 cards, or if you want to start off small, make it 5. But just add that to your daily activity and it will make a significant difference. Now, we've already talked about rejecting clients. Clients rejecting us, I should say. One of the things that I really enjoy from time to time is rejecting my clients. In other words, switching it around. And the reason I reject them is because after about 3 or 4 cancelled meetings, various excuses, arriving on a Friday night, 8 o'clock to find out they've gone out, they confirmed only that morning but they've now suddenly forgotten, or excuse after excuse leads you to think, hang on a minute, why am I doing this? We've all been there, haven't we? We've all been in a situation where we started to question, should I pursue this prospect anymore? And the reason we do is because we are convinced that sooner or later the sale will come. Well, in my experience, 99.9 times out of 100 the sale doesn't come, and we just spend an awful lot more time pursuing a lost cause. I'm going to suggest to you, and again it's on the website, if you want to take the form of words and knock it around, write them a letter and simply say to them something like, we've now tried a few times to meet, I realise that you're very busy, but I am too, and so the reason for this letter is I'm going to suggest that we just leave things for now. Here's my contact information. If your circumstances change and you get to a point where you're really serious about working with me, then give me a call. Now, what's going on inside their mind? Guilt, rejection. One of the things that people do when they are being rejected is what? What do you instinctively want to do? Fix it. Reach out. The number of phone calls I have had from lost causes who've received a letter, a rejection letter, who said, really sorry about it, I've just been a bit mixed up with different things, loads of personal stuff going on, please come and see me and let's start over. And when that happens, they are the best prospects you can imagine. They are on best behavior. No objections, yep, sure, let's just get this agreed. Seriously, try it. It's just that in our professions, we believe our clients need us more than we need them. And that's true. But in our minds, we see it the other way around. We have businesses that run us. We don't run our businesses. We allow our clients to dictate when we see them, what we do, the activity levels we engage in. We make excuses to our spouses and our kids and our friends and our relatives as to why we can't see them because somebody's just changed an appointment and they're seeing us at 8 o'clock in an evening on a Friday when we've promised it to our family. It goes on all the time. That is not a professional, structured financial services business. That is being very busy and not being paid very well for that activity. So I'm going to suggest to you that if you feel so inclined, you reject clients once in a while, if you feel the need. Okay, one other very simple idea. How many of you get at least 2 referrals, 2 personal introductions every time you engage with a client? Okay, here's a solution. I guarantee this works. When is a great time to ask for referrals? We'll stick with the word referral because it's a word you're familiar with at the moment. When's the best time to ask for a referral? After you've made the sale. I think generally most of us would accept that once the sale has been made, we ask for referrals. True? I'm going to suggest that you ask for the referral at the first meeting. Let me clarify. Ask for the referral, you set up the referral, which you're then going to get at the second meeting. Very few of us ask for the referral at the first meeting. Now, again on the website, we don't have a lot of time for me to go through this in detail, but one of the ways that you can embed your referral message in the mind of a client is to send your message straight to their subconscious. If any of you are familiar with the way we learn things, all of our habits, walking, talking, breathing, all the other things we do, are learned habits because that's information that's stored in our subconscious. All of the interference and negative thinking from a prospect is stored in their conscious mind. It's where all the objections come from. If you can get a message into their subconscious, and there's a very simple technique, you stand a 356% better chance of a yes when you ask the referral question. Scientific fact. So, here's how it works. At some random point during the first meeting, I'm halfway through the fact find. I drop my pen down. I say, your name, sir? Bob. So let's just imagine I'm filling in a fact find with Bob. Bob, before I forget, I make it a professional business practice to work by personal introduction. And the reason I get so many, Bob, when I ask my new clients, is I like to think that what I do is very different from everyone else. So let's just continue. And then I carry on with the fact find. Now, Bob, can I ask you a question? Do you remember word for word what I've just said to you?
Certainly.
Okay, could you just repeat?
That you take a very different direction in wanting to understand who I am.
Okay.
Like to that effect.
Absolutely incorrect, Bob. But good effort. Now, Bob, why do you think it is that you don't remember word for word what I just said? What was I doing that was distracting you?
Playing with your watch.
Correct. Now, I did that in a very theatrical way, by the way. I would not be quite as grand or showy as I've just demonstrated, but I did it because I'm stood up here and I wanted everyone to see. Now, I could do it with a pen. What I have just done is I've used a form of words that has gone straight into Bob's subconscious because I have distracted his conscious attention with this watch, or a pen, or an earring, or buckle on my bag, or whatever it happens to be. Bob was looking at the watch. It is important to maintain eye contact when you do this, otherwise it doesn't look very sincere, and you don't want to make a big thing. It just needs to be subtle. It might just be rub your wrist or play with a button, anything like that, that distracts Bob enough for me to put the information that I've given him straight into his subconscious. He will remember every single word I've given him when at the second meeting I touch my watch again. It's called an anchor. When I touch my watch again at the second meeting and say, Bob, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this, but I make it a professional business practice to work by personal introduction. Tell me, Bob, who do you know that you think I could work with in the same way that I'm working with you? Now, in his subconscious mind, he has been preparing for that question ever since the first meeting. I guarantee this works. So you need to practice it, though. Ask at the first meeting by setting up the second meeting question, and it works. 4 very important parts to the question I've asked him. Bob, I make it a professional business practice. What does that say to him in his mind? It's a professional business practice. It happens all the time. To work by personal introduction, not by referral. Personal introduction. Why? Because I want Bob to personally introduce me to someone. And the reason I get so many, Bob, what does that say to him? The reason I get so many, Bob, I'm good, obviously, but the reason I get so many is saying to him, and I'm going to get quite a few from you as well, Bob. It's peer group pressure. He's now thinking, oh, I've got to give him a few, because if I only give him one, I'm not as good as the rest of his prospects. That's true, that's true. The reason I get so many, Bob, when I ask my new clients is I like to think that what I do is very different from everyone else. What does that say to him? Unique. I'm unique. And that's the message you need to convey to your prospects, that you are unique, because then it doesn't matter about the product you sell, the price of your product, or anything else. If you are unique and different, people want to do business with you. 4 very simple messages in 1 sentence. All simple hooks that gets Bob engaging with me. And here's my anchor. That's what reminds him of the question I laid down at the first meeting. Number 6, I call it the Starbucks model, because most of you guys are familiar with Starbucks, right? Now, in any business model that relies on a retail process, a product at the end of that process, let me share with you why some are successful and some are not. Because if you can apply this principle to your businesses, I guarantee you'll be more successful, way more successful, in fact. Now, it's often the case that when I represent a company, clients will say, but is that the cheapest? Or is that the best product? Now, Starbucks don't worry about best product, do they? I don't know if it's about you, but it's not the best coffee I've ever had. But I find myself going to Starbucks and buying a $4 cup of coffee when I could get it for $2 down the road. And I ask myself, well, why is it that I'm spending money at Starbucks, which is twice what I could pay somewhere else? So we know it isn't about product. Apple Macintosh is a great example of that. Singapore Airlines, one of the most expensive in the world, but doing better than almost any other. So what is it about these companies that get people spending more money, not asking questions, not raising objections? And it is simple. There is always a wholesale cost. There's always sorry, I beg your pardon. There's always a raw material cost. Now, in the Starbucks model, it is what? The coffee bean. In financial services, what's the raw material? Risk, absolutely, insurance risk. Do people, your clients, die any faster or slower than with any other company? No. Risk is the same. Everyone dies at the same rate in America. Surprise, surprise. So we know that there's no difference in risk cost. Wholesale cost is what in financial services? Distribution, the insurance company. Retailer is? The advisors, that's you guys. Now, if we generally accept that relative to the size of the company, there's no difference in risk cost, no difference in wholesale cost, and no difference in retail cost, why is it that people will choose one company over another? And it's simple. And it's a word, the one word you need to write down today. Because if you remember this word and embed this in your business, you will be instantly more successful because people will be drawn to you. And it is the word experience. Starbucks, Apple, Singapore Airlines, McDonald's, they all create an experience, good or bad. For McDonald's, we know it's not about the quality of the food, but it is an experience. You know exactly what you're going to get from the moment you walk in the door to the moment you leave. Isn't that true? Starbucks is no different. You know exactly what you're going to get when you walk in through the door. Comfortable armchairs, a newspaper, nice working environment, free Wi-Fi, and all the other bits and pieces they add on to create that experience. If you do not have a unique experience offering for your clients, you need to work on one. And by the way, I'm not talking about honesty or good service or integrity, la, 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 we've heard all that before. I'm talking about things that differentiate you, one or two simple ideas. And if you want to send me an email, I can share with you a whole bucket load that we use in our business. Okay, so there's the 6 marketing engine ideas that will help you grow your business and maintain some activity levels. Just a quick note on change, because hopefully all of you have got a pen and a piece of paper. Now, everyone talks about change, and I'm no different, but I'm going to spend just 30 seconds on it because it's very, very important. So if you have a pen and a piece of paper right now, I would like you to grab them, and if you can, draw a vertical line down the center of the page. So you'll need a fresh sheet of paper, the back of your workbooks or whatever, if you don't have a separate sheet. Draw a vertical line down the center of your page, okay? You only need about half the page, so just enough to have a little competition. Again, there's going to be a prize, a very good prize, by the way. I am willing to offer $500 cash for the winner of this competition. Seriously, $500 cash, straight out of my own pocket, for the winner of the competition I'm about to share with you. Everyone up for a bit of a challenge? Suddenly, you all come alive. Amazing. Okay, so here's how it works. I'm going to give you 20 seconds. And what I'd like you to do in those 20 seconds is on the left-hand side of the page, divided by the central line, I would simply like you to sign your name as many times as you can in 20 seconds when I say go. So I'm going to count you down, 3, 2, 1, and when I say go, you start. Now, what I'm going to do to set the scene is I'd like you to imagine you're in a world signature signing competition, okay? All you've got to do is go as fast as you can, but the only rule is you must maintain good form on your signature. It cannot be just kind of squiggle and you can't put an X. It must be the kind of signature you would put on a legal document, and it must be consistent. Everyone must look the same, more or less. So if you get faster, I'm just going to disqualify any of them that don't look like your normal signature, okay? Now, just to give you a quick clue, this is not about you coming up with more signatures than the next person. This is your own individual competition, because we're going to try and beat your best in a moment, okay? So, here's how it works, but I do want you to do this. This is on trust. You must do this as fast as you can. Give it 100%, okay? So 20 seconds. I'm going to count you in 3, 2, 1. When I say go, off you go, okay? No more rules. Just maintain a good form, but do as many as you can in 20 seconds. Off we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Sign your name as fast as you can, as many times as you can. Really, really go for it. Imagine you're in a world signature signing competition and you're about to set the inaugural world record. You've got about 7 seconds left, so you're really, really going for it now. Finishing line is in sight. And stop. Fantastic. What I'd like you to do now is just add up the number of times you signed your name, put a number at the bottom, and put a circle around it. Okay, how many of you signed your name more than 20 times? You can all write, presumably. 15. Any more than 15? What have you been doing for 20 seconds? Okay, what's the lowest number? Has anyone done 5? Less than 5? Shut up, come on, surely not. How many words do you have in your name? Okay, right then, so what we're going to do now, in the left-hand column, this is to demonstrate the power of focus, because you now know what you have to beat. You've put the number in the circle at the bottom of the left-hand column, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do now, it must look exactly the same. You've simply got to beat your best in 20 seconds. If you do that, you win the prize, okay? Very, very simple. Everyone ready? Yes? 3, no pressure. 3, 2, oh, just before we begin, would you please transfer the pen to the other hand? 3, 2, 1, go. Sign your name as fast as you can, as many times as you can. It must look exactly the same. World signature signing competition. I'm a Brit. I do not give money away for free. Okay. You've only got a few seconds left. Keep going, and stop. Well done. So, okay. So I think the point I just want to make here is that I would like just for a moment to take you back to the moment when I said transfer the pen to the other hand. What did you think? What went through your mind? Keep it clean. What did you think? I can't do it. It's impossible. This is ridiculous. All those kinds of things go through your head 1,000 times a day. But hopefully there's enough in this presentation for you to go, you know what, I'm just going to take 1 or 2 ideas and I'm going to apply them in my business. I'm not going to think it's impossible, because I've demonstrated through practical demonstration that it is possible. Apply 1 or 2 of your favorite ideas, stick them into your business right now, and become more successful at what you do. And the reason I want to share that last thought with you is because I stopped procrastinating. And I'm very pleased to say that I sold my mum and Dave that insurance policy. And I sold them that insurance policy in December 1994. And it was the very first sale I made in this business. And it's motivated and inspired me ever since. And I'll tell you why. Because just 2 months after Dave took out that insurance policy, in February 1995, Dave was diagnosed with stomach cancer. I couldn't believe it was happening to us all over again. This time there was to be no 2-year battle for Dave. Just a few weeks after his diagnosis, Dave was in hospital. And a few days later, as I was sat alone with him one day by his bedside, Dave was dying. And I remember the very last words my stepdad Dave said to me before he passed away. He looked me in the eye and he said, "Son, thank you for what you did for your family. I'm so proud of you." And ladies and gentlemen, isn't that why we do what we do every day? I find it very difficult to accept objections from clients these days, because I know the power of life insurance, the power of what we do for our prospects and our clients and our loved ones every single day. And my final message to each and every one of you is, do not lose sight of what a magnificent job you do. We are fortunate to be in the most noble of all professions. Take 2 or 3 ideas, take positive action, and change your lives. Thank you.